From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm standing in front of Captain Hugh Clark's house, who was a Great Lakes ship captain when he lived here in Bayview. Clarence Street, just a little bit west of Burrell. And oh, by the way, before I forget, I forgot to mention with the Lease Brothers and Holly Boyce and some of the other ones on Burrell Street, take a look at that map that I built of all the lake captains. It's on our website. Notice behind Burrell Street, or on Burrell Street, were the greatest majority of sailing ship captains. And I believe that what they did is they brought their sailboats in on the KK River and walked up the back to their house instead of off the street. It's a guess, but I think it's pretty possible. Okay, all right. Let's go back to Hugh Clark, shall we? Hugh Clark was on his way up in the Great Lakes ship captain community. He was captaining bigger and bigger ships, bigger and better ships, getting a reputation as reliable and sought after lake captain. But then one day he just decided to take another job sailing excursions of fruit and vegetables over to Michigan and back on a much smaller ship. Now, my opinion is why he did that is because lake captains are gone from April basically until December. They're never home. And so I think what he wanted to do was spend more time with his family. And that taking that job gave him that opportunity. And I think it was for him the right decision. Then after that, he became a fireboat captain for the city of Milwaukee. Again, 9-to-5 job, stable income. But Hugh Clark was killed in the line of duty as a captain of a fireboat. The only one that today, the only fireboat captain today that is recognized on the state Wisconsin Firefighter Memorial up in northwestern Wisconsin. It's amazing the captains that we have living in Bayview, heretofore completely unreported. I'm going to try to put their names on a plaque and remember them in an open part, a little grassy area over by Sugar Maple Pub on East Lincoln Avenue, where most of the captains lived, the majority lived. If you'd like to contribute to that, remember we're not a 501c3, so it won't be a tax-deductible donation, but if you'd like to contribute anyway, There's ways to do it on our website, and if you watch the last slide in this video, we'll show you how you can do it there. Don't forget also, the Historic Bayview Lake Captain Society, which is promoting this video, producing this video, also offers free self-guided walking tours. Our website is interactive. You can see all the homes there and how to get to them of the captains that lived here in Bayview. And then, or if you want to, you can go for a walk, take your phone with you. Like I'm standing outside in front of Hugh Clark's house. You can dial it up and you can read and listen in to Simon Stanhope narrating while you're standing here. All free. There are no dues. If you want to join, you can subscribe, but you don't even have to do that. All so you can. I want you to learn about Bayview's lake captains, a great history in Bayview that nobody knows about until now. That's all. Remember, hats off to Bayview's lake captains, and I'll see you later.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of lake captains' homes in Bayview to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Hugh Clark, who lived on Clarence Street in Bayview. He is one of 2 lake captains in Bayview that immigrated from Ireland, and is also one of several that transitioned away from captaining ships on the Great Lakes to captaining fireboats for the city of Milwaukee. Early in his career, he had also been an officer on a ship that had been built, owned, and operated by Eber Brock Ward of Bayview's rolling mill fame. Later, Hugh Clark became the only fireboat captain in Wisconsin to have been killed in the line of duty. Captain Hugh Clark was born in 1854 in Ireland. He immigrated to America in 1869 at age 18 with his mother Margaret. Their port of immigration is unknown, but soon after arrival he became a sailor, probably an entry-level deckhand on a Great Lakes cargo ship, most likely a steamer, living location unknown. He is first discovered in Milwaukee in 1877, working as a mate aboard the steamer Minneapolis, likely living aboard. Interestingly, the Minneapolis was once one of Eber Brock Ward's ships in his Lake Superior line, managed out of Detroit. Ward built it just 4 years earlier, in 1873, so when Hugh Clark served aboard it in 1877, it was still a fairly new ship. Hugh Clark moved off the ship and into the 3rd Ward the next year in 1878, becoming first officer, second in command, on the steamship Menominee on 31st of March 1880, sailing the Milwaukee to Grand Haven, Michigan route. The next year, on 4th of May 1881, he was named first officer on the steamer Oconto on the Chicago to Green Bay and Chicago to Manitowoc routes through likely 1882. He then became first mate on the steamship Flint and Pear Marquette No. 1 from 1883 to 84, taking over as its captain from December 1884 through 15th of September 1887. It was aboard the Flint and Pear Marquette No. 1 that Hugh Clark had his most harrowing experience on the lakes. On 1st of January 1885, while attempting to enter port at Ludington, Michigan, during a huge gale, the ship was blown onto a sandbar which ripped open a hole in the hull. The wind then blew it off the sandbar and smashed it into one of the piers, making another hole. The wind then blew the ship off the pier and onto the beach, where it sank in 14 feet of water, its cargo a total loss. 1 crewman was killed. Hugh Clark had just become captain, his first command, only a few weeks earlier. The final ship he was connected with while living in the 3rd Ward was the steamship Omaha, of which he took over command at least in 1888, from fellow Bayview Lake Captain Hawley Boyce. Later, another Bayview Lake Captain, Thomas Dunn, would also captain the Omaha in 1903. There were quite a few lake captains in Bayview that took turns captaining the same ships, and we'll be devoting a later episode about it. While still in command of the Omaha, Hugh Clark moved to Bayview and into the house at 316 East Clarence Street. This would remain his home for the rest of his life, until his death in 1906. Then, in early 1889, he took over as captain of the bulk freighter Veronica, which he captained for almost 2 complete sailing seasons, 1889 to 90. After the Veronica, he was selected to take over as captain of the steamship Flint and Pear Marquette No. 2 on 26th of October, 1890. Hugh Clark's maritime career as a lake captain was definitely on the upswing. He was a rising star. But just a year later, on 5th of September 1891, Hugh Clark decided to make a radical change of direction in his career. He decided to both depart as captain of the Flint and Pear Marquette No. 2, as well as to end his tenure of over 20 years within the large steamship community since immigrating in 1869. He decided to move over to an entirely different kind of steam vessel, a smaller steamer with a completely different mission. He accepted the job of captain of the Cyclone, home-ported in Milwaukee, that ran the fruit trade between Milwaukee and Saugatuck, Michigan. The job opened up because the prior captain was relieved of command the previous week, when he had elected not to go across Lake Michigan during a huge storm. Instead, this captain decided to stay close to shore and sail down to Chicago to put his cargo of peaches on rail cars to ship to Saugatuck that way. Upon taking the job, Hugh Clark promptly announced to reporters that he didn't intend to run away from any wind and rough seas as the prior captain did. Clark probably took the Cyclone job because he would be able to spend more time with his family. The smaller Cyclone, which had failed previously financially on 10th of August 1891 as an excursion steamer carrying Milwaukeeans to and from Whitefish Bay, was now making daily runs back and forth to Michigan. This meant he'd be home most nights and weekends. Lake captains on the bigger steamships, as he had been serving aboard for the past 2 decades, travelled all over the lakes, and once the sailing season opened in April, in most cases wouldn't see their family again until December. That's 9 months out of every year not seeing the wife or kids. So Clark likely took the Cyclone job to be with his family for once. He may have remained as captain for the next 8 years, though this is not certain, when the Cyclone was sold to New York owners. His final and fateful career change took place on 13th of October 1899, when, after the Cyclone was sold, he was hired as a fireboat captain by the Milwaukee Fire Department. This job, too, allowed him to be home regularly with his family. Hugh Clark served as captain of 2 fireboats, engines, fireboats number 15 and 17, until 27th of September, 1906, when he was killed in an accident on board. He was 52 years old. His body was displayed in his house at 316 East Clarence Street, Bayview, as was the custom of the time, and then taken to Immaculate Conception Church, and then on to burial at Calvary Cemetery. He was also a member of St. John's Cathedral. Hugh is also remembered by having his name on the wall of the Wisconsin State Firefighters Memorial in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, and on the Milwaukee Fire Department's Fallen Firefighters list, the only fireboat captain in Wisconsin to have died in the line of duty. He was a member of the Milwaukee Shipmasters Association and the Excelsior Marine Benevolent Association. Captain Hugh Clark married his wife Mary, also an Irish immigrant, in 1878, while living in the 3rd Ward. They had 3 children, James, Isabel, and May. After Hugh died in 1906, wife Mary continued to live in the house on Clarence Street until 1922. They are buried together, except Isabel, in Calvary Cemetery in Milwaukee. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. This channel and its matching website also plan to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's lake captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it, as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to donate to support these projects, to include this and other markers honouring Bayview's lake captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider donating to us through the listings shown next. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. That is the only surviving intact ship once captained by at least 2 and likely 3 different Bayview lake captains. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.